Max.
This is Hyman with All Access Elite Boxing. I want to ask you a question about Oscar Valdez. Leading up to this fight, we spoke with Oscar 2 days prior to the fight. He mentioned to us that, you know, when he suffered his broken jaw in the ring, the hardest part about that fight wasn't the fight itself. It was after the fight. When he had his mouth wired shut for 2 months, he said he suffered from a panic attack and thought he was going to die the first 2 days. Coming back from the ring, 11 months, how would you assess his performance tonight, considering that he's joined the likes of Eleider Alvarez?
Valdez is a very good fighter. He would make a very good fight with any of the 26-pounders. They put him in with the right guy tonight. You know, Top Rank has been, and I'm not just saying this because I'm at ESPN and Top Rank's at ESPN, I'll give it to you straight. Top Rank has been the most successful promoter in the history of boxing. Aaron's been doing this since the 70s, right? When he was there with Don King, Don King was actually the most dominant promoter, but that was done on the cult of his personality. Arum and now Todd DeBuff have a structure in place and have been non-stop the most successful, or one of the 2 most successful promotional outfits, even as the landscape has changed, for 50 years, right? So one of the reasons for that is they have very, very good matchmakers. Bruce Trampler and Brad Goodman are as good as it gets. Carl Moretti works at the company, he's not even a matchmaker, and he was an excellent matchmaker. So they put him in right. They put Valdez in with a guy, Tomasoni, who can't hit at all, whose technique isn't even very good. And it's not that Valdez didn't deserve it. He had 3 tough fights. You don't put a guy in a killer fight after killer fight. You need to get him some rounds, get his confidence back, especially coming off a busted jaw. So, but that is the reason I think Valdez looked as good as he did first fight back like that, because he was with a guy who was a soft touch. That is true. Valdez is a good fighter. He's a very good fighter. I thought he looked calm, which was, one of the things you're looking for in a situation like that, when he may be a little, let me test the jaw, let me see what it feels like. He looked calm. He boxed very well. He mixed it up to the head and body. He flashed knockout power. He's a very good fighter, and even though Frampton doesn't have the belt anymore, if you can't make a fight for a unification of belts, a fight with Frampton and Valdez would be really fun to watch, and any fight at 26 involving Valdez would be fun to watch.
What would you think he would have to do, in a sense, to fight a Leo Santa Cruz, a Warrington, a Jared Russell Jr.? When we spoke to Oscar at the weigh-ins, he mentioned that those are the types of fights that he wants, his promoter wants, and that they're willing to make. What do you think it's going to take for those fights to happen?
Well, I mean, promoters and networks are going to have to come to some understanding. And if the money is there, they'll figure out a way to divvy it up. I don't see any of the fighters you just mentioned as kind of long-term cash cows, in the sense that none of them look like blue-chip, pound-for-pound type fighters. But they're all good fighters. All the fighters you mentioned, think of how many permutations of those guys make fun, evenly matched fights. So from that point of view, there's no reason not to make those fights. So I think there is a good chance that at least some of the permutations, of the fighters you mentioned will be seen in the near future, including involving Valdez.
James Bowers from FightHype.com. Teofimo Lopez looked like a world beater tonight. Do you see him winning a world title this year?
That depends. Are you going to put him in with a guy who has a world title? If so, he's going to win it. He is a sensational talent. And look, we all know what it is. Occasionally, you get a guy like Julio Cesar Chavez, the daddy, right? Who wasn't all fast, twitchy, but was a great fighter. Occasionally, you get an Evander Holyfield, who also wasn't like the most blazing fast guy you've ever seen, but was a great fighter. But for the most part, when we look at these prospects and we're trying to figure out who's going to be the next pound-for-pound champ or the next elite guy, we're looking for fast, twitchy stuff. We're looking for the stuff that Lopez showed. When you combine that with the kind of punching power he flashes and the technique, it's not like he's the most precise technical fighter in the world, but that's a guy who knows what he's doing. He knows how to box. And then you have the attitude. I know that's going to turn people off, and for good reason. When you knock a guy out, because the referee did a horrible job, but and the Texas Commission is weak, and we all know that, and they consistently assign referees who consistently show bad judgment. It's not just they stop fights too early, because sometimes they do that, right? Lawrence Cole back in the day, he'd ensure the fight and then stop the fighter, but also they just show bad judgment. They stop the fight too late when the fight. And twice tonight we saw that, with referees that the commission approves looking completely clueless, and that includes in the Lopez fight. Should have been a first-round knockout. It was an unnecessary second round, oh my God, the type of stuff you don't want to hear about later on in the guy's life knockout. And after that, Lopez goes up to him and does the broom thing like he's sweeping out the trash. That's a bad look. Now, Lopez says, I understand, look, he's fired up in the moment. He's a competitive guy. They're talking trash before the fight. He's young, you know, and hot-headed. I get that. Lopez says after the fight that, look, this is him, basically, and he's going to turn some people off, but they're going to be interested in him. And he's right. They will be interested in him. I don't think that's a good enough excuse to behave that way. But it's not my life, it's his life. He's going to either learn from these kind of things or not. He'll decide the kind of person he wants to be. I've spoken to him. I think he's a good kid. At least when I've interacted with him, he hasn't seemed like a bad guy. But that kind of behavior will draw attention and yet turn people off. That said, what does the package I just described say to you? Right? The kind of personality that will be polarizing. A sensational physical package who fights with bad intentions, that's a star. And the reason that's significant is because the way boxing is structured right now, and it's really always been this way, it's just very obvious right now because there's so much money in boxing. The way boxing's structured is promoters are siloed with networks. So Lomachenko, it's not Top Rank's fault that Lomachenko beats everyone so easily that he goes to junior lightweight, still does it, that he goes to lightweight, still does it. Even at lightweight, it's like, who can he fight? Oh, Mikey Garcia. We like the Garcia fight because that's a dude who's also a top pound-for-pound fighter, but is naturally bigger than Lomachenko. That's what it takes to make us believe that his opponent has a chance, right? But Mikey would rather go up and fight Errol Spence. By the way, hats off to Mikey for fighting Errol Spence. But we all know why. Because, in a sense, it's less of a risk. You're staying in your promotional outfit, at your network. You don't have to do business, like, as difficult business. You also move up in weight, even if you lose. Look, you took a chance, right? Okay. That's the reality. Who else can Lomachenko fight? You got to find someone that makes it interesting, or else this sensational kind of generational talent spends his whole career and never gets to be in the kind of fight we want to see him in. Again, not his fault. Rigondeaux couldn't do it. The Axeman couldn't do it. They're really, really good fighters, and they just can't even test them. When you see a guy like Lopez, 21 doing that, you go, that guy. I want to see Lomachenko fight that guy. If not right now, kind of in the not too distant future. And for that, because he's a star. He has a star quality in and out of the ring. Lopez does not see himself as an opponent. He sees himself as the star, himself as the champ. That's why a Lomachenko fight is so interesting.